Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our workshop. We're really excited and looking forward to these next 2 days. We have a very good level of involvement and registration, and as it has just outlined, there's lots of opportunities to engage. We are very much looking forward to your participation and hope you keep the conversation going even after the workshop. Our Slack platform will remain active through January next year. So our workshop is focusing on exploring climate change in California, the connections and what the science knows. And of course, science is the foundation that informs California's efforts to address climate change. As our California climate change indicators report, they're grounded in science, and our 2018 report shows impacts that range from the obvious, the increase in devastating wildfires, to the more subtle, such as changes in bird migration patterns and slowly evolving changes in forest habitats. And some indicators speak to direct effects on human health, like heat-related morbidity and mortality. Others have implications for our farmers, the faster maturing and earlier harvests of various crops. So scientists can argue about the connections between climate change and what any individual indicator is showing. We hope lots of discussion about new indicators over the next 2 days. Taken together, though, they point to a very compelling picture of a California significantly impacted by climate change. And we're here today to further explore these connections, to identify new indicators for tracking impacts in California. And in this way, this workshop's going to guide us in our next climate change indicators report, currently scheduled for 2021. And as our indicators reflect and improve scientific understanding, they can in turn inform the goals and actions to adapt the now unavoidable effects of climate change in the short term, and also to inform mitigation in the long term. So we're thrilled that so many of you have joined us in what I'm sure is going to be a fascinating and thought-provoking 2 days of discussion on what science is revealing about climate change impacts in California. And to begin the day, it's my pleasure to introduce Valentin Lopez, chairman of the Amah Mutsun tribal band, to give the blessing and land acknowledgements of our workshop. The Amah Mutsun are active in conservation and protection efforts within their tribal territories. Chairman Lopez is also a Native American advisor to the University of California Office of the President and to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We welcome you, Chairman Lopez.
Mismi Truhis, Kanrakad Valentin Lopez. Lisa Ni, I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much, Director Zeise. My name is Valentin Lopez, as Lauren mentioned, and I'm the chairman of the Amah Mutsun tribal band. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm thankful for the invitation to give this morning's prayer. Before I do, I'll tell you a little bit that our tribe descends from the indigenous people that were taken to missions, San Juan Bautista and Santa Cruz, in the Central Coast area of California. Our creation story tells us that Creator very specifically identified our tribal territory and then gave us a responsibility to take care of Mother Earth and all living things. And all living things included the insects, the birds, the four-legged, the wings, the winged. It included the rivers, the air, the mountains, the fog, the shadows, etc. That was a very important obligation. It was a sacred covenant that we had with Creator. And so we recognize first and foremost that the Mother Earth was sacred. And so we had an obligation to maintain that sacredness. We had prayers, we had ceremonies, we had reciprocal ways that acknowledged that sacredness of the lands. We recognized that there was balance in all things, and we worked to strengthen and ensure that that balance was met. We recognized that all plants have a responsibility to take care of a community, and that's something that we've lost. They have a responsibility to take care of the community. That community, the plants had a responsibility to take care of the fungi, the insects, the birds, the four-legged. And because of the way that we learned to steward and take care of our plants, they became very resistant. They developed very deep root systems. A lot of our grasslands developed roots that went down 15, 20 feet. And that right there helped protect them from fire, flood, drought, etc. It also made them very resistant to disease. And the world recognizes that today. When we look at the vineyards around the world, we look at the strawberry fields around the world, look at a lot of the nut crops around the world, they use the rootstock from the California native plants because they are resistant to disease. And that deep root system, as I said, will make them resistant to fire, flood, drought. And when they talk about climate change impacting our world, that's a huge part of what climate change will bring. And so our native plants are going to be very important for addressing climate change in the future. Our people learn how to use fire so that to avoid the catastrophic buildup of fuels. And we've seen just this past summer, we saw the damage that fire can do. If there was indigenous stewardship of the lands, those fires would not have happened. And so we are working now, going forward, we are working with Berkeley, and you see Berkeley and many other universities to bring back traditional use of fire in the way our ancestors did. We take care of the coastlines and the oceans. We recognize the importance of the small little fishes like the sardines, the herring, etc. The importance of them to the salmon, and so we're working now again to bring back the traditional ways our people took care of the coastlines and the oceans. The way our people took care of these lands made them very sustainable and able to continue, and they continued for thousands and thousands of years. Our people have been on these lands for thousands of generations, and each generation learned more and passed that knowledge down. But then came the brutal periods of colonization. And all three of those periods, the Mexican, Spanish period, the Spanish and mission period, the Mexican period, and the California American period, they wanted to destroy our knowledge. And they wanted to destroy our ceremonies and our knowledge and our prayers, etc. We need to bring that back. And our ways going forward are really important. I'd like to say the prayer now. Creator, may people be able to listen and understand with their minds, their bodies, and their hearts today. Creator, may today help us understand how to heal Mother Earth. May we recognize the need to restore sacredness to the lands. May people also understand the importance of traditional indigenous knowledge to healing Mother Earth. Creator, we depend on your guidance and the guidance of our ancestors to show us how to go forward until the last sunrise. Please be with us today. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Lopez, for starting our meeting with such a poignant prayer. I now will introduce, it's with honor and pleasure, Secretary Jared Blumenfeld to make the opening remarks for today. As Secretary of the California Environmental Protection Agency, Jared is steadfast in driving ambitious policies to ensure the state meets the Newsom administration's goal of being carbon neutral by 2045. Early on, we got an inkling we could expect bold action and leadership from Jared, and that he would be expecting the same from us. Jared opened one of his senior management meetings with a video of the young climate activist Greta Thunberg chastising world leaders, and by implication, all of us, about dangerously slow action on climate. In addition to his leadership at Cal EPA, Jared's recognized as one of America's most innovative environmental leaders with more than 25 years of environmental policy and management experience. This includes 7 years under former President Obama as Region 9 Administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Welcome, Jared.
Thanks, Lauren. Good to be with everyone this morning, and really a huge thanks to Chairman Lopez. Really moving way to start the morning. And I mean, I think part of the frame of this few days of coming together is to think about connectedness and science, and certainly thinking and feeling about how we're connected to Mother Earth and how she is sacred and what our responsibility is. And I think sometimes that traditional ecological knowledge is not elevated to the level of the IPCC or the science that we're doing. And I think that's really to our detriment. We need to learn from those stewards who have gotten it right before. And sometimes it feels like science is overly disconnected from the people and the systems and the culture and the history that we live in. So hopefully that invocation this morning from Chairman Lopez can help us really dig deep and think about how science is not removed. And I often think actually that we use science at it, in a negative space to create a separation between us and the rest of nature. Somehow us being able to name and classify and manipulate science gives us a sense that we are better than the rest of nature and not equal to the rest of nature. And somehow I think that myth of human superiority is at the root of much of what we need to deal with if we're going to save us and our planet. So staying with the philosophical a moment, I mean, one of the things that I feel really strongly coming out of 4 years of an anti-science, anti-public health administration in the federal government is really that we have a battle, right? Science for me is about collective truth. It's about empiricism, how we look at the world around us and come up with replicable models of how systems work so that we can understand that world around us. We really moved to a place where people feel that they can have an individual truth and abandon that collective truth. We don't need to understand collective visions of science because this is what I personally feel. And so that has been incredibly corrosive to the integrity of science, to scientific institutions. And I think first and foremost on this gathering, we really need to pay heed to that. The very institutions that we care about when it comes to scientific integrity and making sure that we can discern truth from fiction have been put in jeopardy. And I think one of our jobs is to, in California particularly, help inculcate in the federal government, which is very beleaguered when it comes to science, that renewed sense that we're all in this together, we are connected, and that we have a lot at stake. I was going to start with another kind of funny thing that I think we hear a lot from people who don't want to admit that climate change is real, which is, well, I'm not a scientist. the cool thing that I think that's also grown up in the last few years really strongly is citizen science. And I know many of you probably have on your phones iNaturalist. I do. Um, and certainly with a lot of the data points that we need to get throughout California, we're not going to get it unless we have citizens involved. So really starting with traditional ecological knowledge and then moving to citizen science, how we connect into the public psyche about them wanting to participate, gathering data, learning more about the environment around them. I think we need to democratize science to a place where people feel empowered to be part of that collective truth and knowledge gathering and knowledge dissemination. So the more we can all think about, it's not just what information we have, it's how that information is gathered, how that information is disseminated, and how people can feel ownership over it. The moderator asked us to talk at the beginning, to think about personal stories. So I'm not going to talk from my remarks. I'm just going to tell you a story, which is I went out. Well, it starts actually a real incredible climate change disaster story, and we probably don't need many more disaster stories, but I'm going to add one anyway, which is about 8 years ago, there was a blob of, it was an El Nino year, and there was a massive blob of hot water that migrated up the coast of California. And it had a huge number of impacts. One of the blob impacts was that it led to sea star wasting syndrome. And so these incredible starfish that play incredibly important biological role, which is eating purple sea urchins, died away. And in the process, purple sea urchins, and this is where my part of the story came in, I went diving in the North Coast with abalone fishermen who are trying to protect the fishery. And you go down there and literally all you see is purple sea urchins, nothing else, no kelp. Where there were kelp forests, the purple sea urchins have eaten all of those. And basically, because the abalone eat the kelp, there's nothing for the abalone to eat, so they starve to death. And within a period of 2 years, you saw this cataclysmic change on the ocean floor. 2 years. So often I think with both wildfires, as the chairman said, and these natural systems that have been interrupted by climate change, they're happening really, really quickly. So I think part of what we also need is not a sense, and I really want to make sure that we leave these days with not a sense that we need to study more before we take action, but really that our action has to be bold, our action has to be meaningful enough to reverse the worst impacts of climate change. We all know, you as scientists, me as a citizen scientist, that we are not going to avert climate change. It is happening right now. All we can do is make sure that it's less bad. And that's meaningful. I mean, it's meaningful to me to understand how we can do that. And so as part of that, really, I think this effort is helping us as policymakers understand what are the areas that we can really make the most difference around, what are the intervention points that are going to make the most knock-on catalytic impact, so that small things that we can do can have a big difference. Because the debate around climate change has been settled for decades. The media doesn't portray it that way often, but we all know that that is true. So we are not doing science to determine even, that we should take action. It's really where the targeted action can best be served, and how we can bring everyone to the table so that people are feeling included and engaged and participating. There's the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project that Miss Margaret Gordon runs, where she really started the whole movement in California of mobile PM and ozone sensors, and it really helps understand traffic flows at a very basic level. Where is traffic flowing? And she's using kids who are walking to school pre-COVID to help understand those emission factors. So we need to get into communities. We need to get to a scale that people understand. And for me, it's a little bit like being at night and thinking about, I really like Addie Leigh Brown's, the idea of the drawing, the graphic representation. And on the far left to us of that image that we saw was the Sierra, and really getting to a place where we can get to the top of that mountain. You know, Martin Luther King talked about a mountain. For us, that mountain is being able to see clearly and understand the landscape before us and understand what interventions we can and need to take. But they have to be informed by the people. And the people have to start with the people that were here first, that understand that landscape, who have been through climate change before, which is our indigenous communities. And that knowledge, to me, just to bring it full circle to Chairman Lopez's opening prayer and statement, is as valuable or more valuable than the science that we're going to do in a lab, or the science that we're going to do in a stream with water gauges. It's what brings life to science, and what helps us get to the place we need to get, which is a consensus around the immediate steps needed to take to help really battle climate change. I see it as a battle in the same kind of analogy as World War II or any of the wars that you read about. This is really a war for the survival of our planet, and I can't think of a better group of people than everyone on this Zoom today to think about where we're really going to focus our attention, and how do we make sure that science is directed and connected to the people and the places that we need to save first, so that we can direct our money and our resources to those places and communities to really have a chance of winning that battle. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Lauren. Thank you.
Thanks very much for those really thought-provoking opening remarks, Jared. And I just want to remind everyone that they can engage in this discussion, think about citizen science, think about these issues that Jared has raised through the Slack platform, and really did quite a bit to get us thinking and get our brains activated this morning, Jared. Thanks so much.